This lesson is on using radio buttons on an HTML form and processing them with PHP. So let's take a look. I've got my first name field, just as before, but below that, I've labeled an employee type with these radio buttons. See these little circular buttons here. Now, the unique characteristic of a radio button is that only one in a radio button group can be selected at a time. If I click part-time, full-time is automatically deselected. Back to full-time, and again, part-time then would be automatically deselected. So if I had 3 or 4 buttons here in this group, only one could be selected at a time. That's what makes something a radio button. So let's go ahead and try this out. Put my name in again, Steve. Will start me out as a full-timer. Click the submit button, Steve, and your employment type is full-time. I'm going to go back, click part-time, submit it, and now you can see my employment status is part-time. Let's go look at the code, the form first and then the PHP code. So here we have the usual hit list, the form tag, the first name field, and now the label employee type. Now I've got a new input type here. Notice it's type equals radio, and that's how you specify a radio button. You just say type equals radio. I gave it a name, E-type for employee type, and then I gave it a value. The first one I gave a value called full-time. That's not what displays. What displays is over here to the right of the tag. Now I happen to use the same words, but I didn't have to. I could have put full-time and put a space between the L and the T and made it 2 words. Doesn't really matter. But I have to have a value and I have to have something to display to the user so they know what it is they're checking. Also, I'd like you to notice in this first one, the full-time, I've got checked equals checked. Again, kind of a redundant way to specify something, but it is the current XHTML standard to do it that way. That would ensure that the very first time I open the form, that full-time was the one checked by default. Now let's go down and look at the part-time button. Part-time, the user sees that, value part-time, but look at the name. I've named it exactly the same as I named the full-time one. They're both named E-type. Not only is that something I chose to do, it's something I had to do if I wanted to get that behavior where only one could be selected at a time. That's the way you enforce 2 radio buttons being together in a radio button group. If I had 6 radio buttons, I would name them all E-type if I had different types like that. Now, if I had 2 sets of radio button groups on a window, I would give the next set a different name, but all the buttons in that group would have exactly the same name. The way we're going to know which one was selected is by this value, full-time, part-time, and you'll see how this is done in PHP. So let's go look at the code. Down here in the PHP block, the normal thing, I get the first name, and now I get the E-type using the $post, just as we've done in the past, and I just store it in a variable. PHP is smart enough to know to bring back the value for the radio button selected when you do it this way with the $post. It puts the value in here, so that's either going to be full-time or part-time. So the print statements, just like you've seen in the past, first name, your employment type is, and then I'm printing the E-type field. And we saw that it worked. It was either full-time or part-time. The styles are pretty much just the same as we had before, same file that we were using before, the basic 2 CSS. Other than that, that's pretty much it for radio buttons.